Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm Gina.
And I'm Evo.
And happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Sadly, we are not drinking.
Not that happy of a Friday, huh?
Aw, wah.
I mean, sometimes you gotta give it a little break. That helps. It's good for the body, good for the soul, I guess. A little cleansing.
Well, it's also pretty early for us right now. And I still got some pre-workout running in my system. And I don't know if the two would mix well.
I definitely would have been feeling a little filthy if we would have got it on this early. Just a little bit. But
that sounded like something totally different than drinking.
Yeah, that was kind of like the point of it a little bit. But
okay. But we do have something here to drink. The beautiful coffee that my husband makes for me in the morning, I actually brought. And I'm pretty excited to drink. So anyway, let's get into the show that we have for everybody today. And thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for joining.
So we have decided that we want to kind of continue a conversation that we kind of touched on one of our last shows, where we spoke about, was it easier for women to have sex, or were men easy in giving sex? And that conversation had a couple of points where we touched on the fact that men that will claim to be straight will engage in gay sex. And we put some of that out into social media, and we got a lot of people commenting. I want to say somewhere close to 1,000 comments.
Yeah.
But a lot of the comments after a while started to sound the same. So I thought that we should continue the conversation, because some of the things that I saw commented, I was very intrigued by. And one of those things that I saw repeatedly in the comment section was, I am a gay man and I have had sex with married straight men. So I wanted to talk about that. Men who are straight and or married, potentially with children, that are engaging in gay sex, and why this may be happening.
And I think that another question that we kind of came up with was that, is it really gay sex, or is it just sex with men? And are these men to be considered gay because they're having sex with men, or is it something else? And I think that, with all the comments and, some of the, we took some small polls, it seemed like that there's a pretty large divide. Yeah, there is. On what people think. I will say there were numerous amounts of people that commented, if a man is having sex with a man, he is gay. Yeah.
There were many people that commented that if a man is having sex with other men but still engaging in sex with women, they are bisexual. Then there were a lot of people that were saying that sexuality is fluid.
Yes.
And that is the one that I primarily identify with. I definitely feel like sexuality is fluid in someone's life, whether it be on an experimentation level, or if they themselves are just going in between men, women, potentially even trans. Because I feel like more recently we've seen these type of sexual encounters happen on TV, on shows.
Yeah.
Immediately what comes to my mind is Euphoria. And there is a storyline that plays out in Euphoria where there is a married straight man and he's engaging in gay sex with a trans woman.
Yeah.
Which would mean that the person that this straight man is engaging with was originally born as a male and transitioned to a woman. And that is not the only time that I've seen that storyline. In addition, I saw it on the show Pose, where a straight man, I don't think he was married, or maybe he was also engaging in sex with a trans woman.
And wasn't there some of that in Game of Thrones too?
I don't know if there was trans, but there was definitely straight men engaging in gay sex. Oberon, which is one of my favorite characters, who to me, which he was the epitome of what a masculine man is, was engaging in gay sex. And I didn't blink twice when I saw that happen. Like, it didn't make me look at him as any less than a man.
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. I have a lot of respect for, and this is just my personal opinion, not to say that I have less of respect for anything other than this, but I have a particular type of respect for a man that likes to be with a man that's a man, per se. Like, there's no femininity in that man. It's two men that like each other because they're men, you know? And there's, I'm sorry, I had some water. I don't know why I keep having to clear my throat, but I think that I just have a different level of respect for that. I think that you know, that's for me, it's very original, you know, because you don't see that a lot when it comes to men partaking in sexual activities with other men. At least from my opinion, I don't see that a lot. It's not something that's publicized a lot. It's not something, you know, when you think of men with other men, or men having gay relations with other men, there is the gayness of it, per se, and I'm probably like chopping this up, but there is the femininity that comes along with a male being gay, when it comes to, you know, two men being with each other. There is that like larger portion of it when okay, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. All right.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm not following you per se.
Okay. Initially, when I started to learn about the gay community, and men being with men, what was exposed to me was men acting a little bit more on the lighter side of a male, more like, you know, having female characteristics, being with each other. That was my initial
okay, so let me just see if I can understand what you're saying. Are you saying that when you were first exposed to homosexual men, one of the men in the relationship maybe more mimicked a woman?
Or both.
Okay, yeah. So is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I thought that's what I was that's what I was saying, but I guess maybe not. I wasn't saying it clear enough. And so it wasn't until later on, and, you know, as I got older, that I started to see men that were attracted to men that didn't show any, you know, female characteristics. They were just, you know, men as I knew what a man would be, but liked men for being a man. And I just thought that was very interesting. Okay.
I wonder why you find that so interesting. Is it because you are primarily just identify two men being together with one of them being more feminine?
No. I just think that you know, if you, so I haven't had it, this just kind of just came to me, but I think that it takes a particular type of person to just like go outside of the norm from a man, right? A man typically likes the opposite sex, right? A heterosexual man, someone that appears to be heterosexual, right? Okay. Typically. So when you see a person that appears to be heterosexual, but is not, is gay and likes a man for being like just perceiving itself as another man, someone that does not look heterosexual, I just find that dynamic interesting. And, and like, I don't have the exact words for it, but I just find it very, very interesting. I think it's almost like for me, the exception to the rule. Okay. Oh. Well.
That's interesting.
And we've spoken about this.
I do feel like
you know this about me.
Yes, I'm just trying to like a little bit understand a little bit more what you were intrigued about it. Like, what did you find interesting about it? What I will say is that I went ahead and reached out to some of my gay friends, because for a long time I worked in an industry, and still do kind of, where I'm exposed to a lot of gay men and gay women. And I have some really great friendships where I was able to kind of like reach out to them and just try to get some confirmation as to if they had ever themselves experienced a situation where a straight man, and I do that with like air quotations because in addition to asking some of my friends, I went along and and did some research into, male sexuality as a whole, just to try to understand, like, what that dynamic looks like. And in speaking to my male friends who are gay, immediately they were like, yeah, absolutely. I have been contacted by several straight men, single, married with children, approaching me for sex. And I was just kind of like, all right, well, like, paint that picture. Like, what does that look like? And of course, a lot of them told me that they're being reached through social media or through dating apps, because this allows the straight male to still have some sort of anonymity. Well, you don't really know who they are, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Their profile may not be that forthcoming.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my friends told me a story about how a lot of these encounters will happen. And it starts off with like, hey, how are you? Just very casual conversation. And then he said that at any point where the conversation goes, hey, can I ask you a question? He immediately knows that question is going to be encompass of some sort of sexual request.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my other friends, gay male friends, told me that he had a particular situation where he worked in a place where it was a store where men and women could shop, and a man came in with his wife and purchased some items and asked for his phone number just in case there was anything wrong with the items that were purchased because they were a gift and so on and so forth. So my friend thought nothing of it. Yeah, of course, here's my, because they were a salesperson, whatever it was. Yeah, of course, here's my phone number. Contact me if there's anything wrong, or you can call the store, whatever it be. Literally the same day, that man contacted my friend and was like, hey, I thought you were really cute. I know you know that I'm married, but, I'd really like to get to know you. So this is happening. And I know that a lot of people in the comments were like, no, absolutely not. A straight man would not do this. From the research that I've done, it seems like people who are hetero are on the smaller scale as far as the research that I read, which was surprising to me. So let me just break it down for you a little bit. People that are heterosexual and people that are homosexual, if you look at it like on a scale of like 100%, 20% are hetero. And this is me just trying to give you a visual. 20% of the population are hetero. 20% of the population are homosexual. The other 60% of the population, based on this research and the survey that was performed, are categorized as other. Because when they were asked what their attraction was it primarily women or was it primarily men? Their attractions answers were, I'm mostly attracted to women. I'm mostly attracted to men, which meant that they're left a window of like vagueness.
So it sounds like there should be like a mostly category, like a mostly straight category.
Okay, so interesting that you say that. So a lot of these people that answered mostly, they then, the research then went a little bit further. Okay, so do you ever fantasize about gay sex? Have you ever had a same-sex encounter? And then it was able to really narrow down, the percentage of people that were looking or attracted or had a desire for same-sex encounters. And it wound up being that pool of people was larger than people that were hetero and larger than people that were homosexual. And like I told you in the comments, a lot of people really were out there saying sexuality is fluid. And I told you that was the one that I felt like was the most true. And that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily agreeing with them. That was actually my opinion going into this. You know, like that's how I felt. I felt like people could really just at any given moment be attracted to a man, be attracted to a woman, engage in sex with a man, you know, no matter your sexual orientation. So it's so funny that you said that there should be an other category. I then went on to read another article from a gay man that wrote about his experiences with his gay and straight friends that would have these type of conversations. And his one gay friend that he included in the article talked about how he felt like that these men that he was engaging in gay sex with were not gay. They were a subset of something else, but they didn't know what that subset of people potentially and their sexuality should be called. And then you and I were having a conversation. We were on a hike and you said, well, then these people are potentially flexible. And you were like,
I said flex sexual.
Yeah, well, first you said flexible, and then you said flex sexual. And I was like, yo, we out here creating new fucking words.
New categories.
So I honestly think that this is why there are men out there that will say that they're straight and they will engage in gay sex.
Yeah. So I actually, through some research, found out that there is a difference between sexuality and sexual orientation, which I was not aware of per se. And when it comes to men, and particularly, a man's sexuality doesn't really define who he identifies with as sexually, because when your sexual orientation is how you identify with yourself sexually. But that basically what that means is that sexually you prefer to have a relationship intimately with a particular type of sex, whether it be male or female, and that defines your sexual orientation. But your sexuality takes away the romantic and the relationship portion of it and just makes it a sexual experience. So just because a man decides to experiment or try out something new with the opposite sex doesn't necessarily make him doesn't necessarily define his sexual orientation. It's just an expression of his sexuality. And it really cleared things up when it came to these questions that we were coming up with, as far as where does this put someone, where does this put a man that decides to have sex with the opposite sex or with the same sex? You know, does it make him gay? Does it make him bi? Where does he stand? And I think that, well, from what I researched, that it's only through time and development of the character that being bi or being gay ends up developing. That's not something that can just happen or for one or two experiences. It's something that grows over time. When it comes from what I
do you mean, okay, I'm gonna dig a little bit on you. So
okay,
when you say that it doesn't happen out of nowhere, it happens over time, do you mean the fluidity of their sexuality?
What I mean is that the labeling, like, what are you, right? What that, like, trying to label the person based on an action that they've done.
Okay.
That can't be done just off of, you know, a snap of a finger.
Okay.
One has to kind of experiment and see, you know, how they feel and where they are with that situation. And then something that if it's something that they continuously do, and it becomes part of who they are as a character, then the identity soon follows, whether it be a bi or whether it be gay.
So then that identity then will be part of their sexual orientation.
Orientation, yes.
Okay, because they're experimenting their sexuality.
Yes, and I think that that's very important to understand when it comes to just categorizing people because they decide to experiment with something.
Well, I think as a human race, we are all about labeling shit.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't have a label,
we don't understand what it is.
Yeah, we don't understand what it is. If we don't understand what it is, then we're not comfortable with it.
You know what's so interesting is that I remember one time reading a book, and it was about self-awareness, and a chapter in the book talked about when you label something, you lose the real thought of what it is to you. Because now it went from being this thing to you that you are how you're viewing it is how you view it. But once someone then turns to you and says, well, that's a blue jay, that's it, it's over. That bird will forever be a blue jay to you. You know, what do they say? A spade is a spade.
Yeah.
So, I completely understand what you mean when you say that. And the reason why I was like kind of pushing back on that a little bit is because, there are many people that will say that they are born gay, which I 100% believe.
Sure.
But even if you're born gay, you still have to find your journey in your sexuality. Because even if you're gay and you're attracted to other women or other men, you still may experiment with the opposite sex. So because you've experimented with the opposite sex, that doesn't mean that you're a gay person that wants to be straight. It's just a gay person that's trying to figure out like exactly what their sexuality is about.
Right.
It's funny because there were people in the comments that were saying that exact same thing. So if I'm a gay person, I'm having sex with the opposite sex, am I now straight?
That's an interesting question.
Because that situation does happen. I can tell you firsthand, I've been around gay men that have told me that they've had some wonderful experiences with women. So that they found themselves attracted to women at any given moment.
So then they would fall into the mostly gay category.
They're not like all the way
not
gay.
All the way gay, but they're mostly gay.
Well, I told you that from this research, which I will cite, because when I tell you that people come for me and they're like, these fucking studies. Listen, if you go back and you look at history fucking like 50,000 years ago, there is evidence of same-sex sex happening.
Yes.
So, there were people also saying things like, oh, this new generation, fucking, they're abominations, and, they're, all this thing about identity and sexuality and all this kind of stuff. This stuff existed a long time ago.
Imagine how sex was when there wasn't no boundaries. I mean, I think the boundaries exist more now. Correct. And the lines are like more prominently drawn now more than ever. So just imagine the fluidity that was going on back when there was no, oh, you can't do this, or this shouldn't be done, and and so on and so forth. And to for people to like try to make some type of statement that it's the problem is now, or like this society now is like the one that's out of control. Really need to do some research.
Let me tell you something. I get so sick of hearing that fucking particular argument when it comes to something, how an older generation will like to blame these new ideas that are happening when they're actually not new ideas happening on because it's a newer generation. How many times have you heard people say like, oh, it's the music, it's the TV, it's this, it's that. Every time a new generation comes, there is going to be new things that come with them. And what I mean by that is that their minds are going to cultivate things differently. But that doesn't mean the things that they're thinking about are different.
What's the
or new.
What's interesting about that, right? Is that an older generation doesn't realize that it is them that creates the new generation. And when I say them that creates the new generation, is that so going back to what I said before, is that now the lines are more prominently drawn than they ever have been, right? And so the lines are drawn by the current generation that's raising the new generation, trying to set these lines and put them in boxes, right? And what ends up happening is the rebellion. They rebel at some point, and boom, all of a sudden branch out to a whole new generation of expressing themselves. So what you have is just generation after generation of just breaking out of the mold that the prior generation is trying to, make them grow up in, and branching out to a whole new thing.
But you know that the older generations will never take they'll never take responsibility for that.
Well,
they'll never be like, yeah, we created that.
They can try to like argue that point, but I don't think there's no arguing that, because they once were that generation. They once were the generation that was breaking out of the mold of the what do you want to call it? The mold, breaking out of the mold that their parents were trying to make them grow up in. Every generation does that. So
oh yeah,
you
for
can't
sure.
deny that. You can't deny something that you were a part of.
We saw that happen with our kids.
Yeah, all it takes is a little bit of self-reflection. If these people for one moment just all of a sudden self-reflected and took a look at themselves in their childhood and how they rebelled at one point and they were breaking out of this mold and things that they were trying.
Oh, hey,
really?
We have a visitor.
What's up, Jez? The stupid head bunt. So yeah. That was an interesting point I wanted to bring up.
I 1000% agree with you on that. And, there's that saying, when you point one finger, there's three pointing back at you.
Absolutely.
In compass with this conversation about men having gay sex, part of that conversation is that men will engage in this type of sex to have more sex. And along with a lot of the research that I read, because I read I want to say really 3 great research articles.
Mm-hmm.
And, they talk about men's desire to want to have more sex. And it's identified that men desire sex more than women. And it's it has to, how can I put this? And because men desire sex more than women, they're going to find ways to get it.
Yeah.
And if they can't get it through opposite sex, they're potentially, like I said previously, they're going to look for it in the same sex.
Yeah. In a particular situation where men who have a relationship with the opposite sex, so a man having a relationship with a female, when in that particular situation, and not to say that this is the situation with all women, but in the scenario where a man is in a relationship with a woman and the woman doesn't like to perform oral sex, or maybe the man likes a little bit of anal fingering, and she doesn't like that, those are type of situations where a man might go seek either a relationship with another woman, or in particularly with another man.
Yeah, because then they're just going to be able to engage in the sex.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect storm of it right there. Like, there's those ingredients, when you put them together, they make that.
So I asked you a question. I don't think you really ever answered it. We were talking outside of the show, and I said, if there are men that are married with children, and they're engaging in this same-sex activities, how does that play a part as for the woman? Like, what if the woman was to find out? Do you think that they're more devastated because it's the same sex, or does it run the same weight as it being with another woman?
So, when I was doing some research on this topic, I came across a couple articles that told the story of women in that situation.
Okay.
And and even men in that situation too, where a man is with a woman and she turns out that she's gay and he's a straight man. And typically it's a lot, from what I read, it's a lot harder for the straight person in the relationship
to accept the person having sex or having some sort of relationship with someone of the same sex.
Yeah, even dealing with it altogether, because it comes to a surprise. Something about the person that they're with now is totally new, and now it's all of a sudden, how well did they really know that person? A bit of deception and deceit kind of like surfaces, that the straight person has to deal with now. A lot of internal emotions of themselves too, like, are they not good enough, and
I hate when that type of internal conversation happens.
So and it's it's just a totally different dynamic. If you have the person that's gay, where they finally are able to be a little bit more free now.
Okay, but pause. We don't know if they're gay, because if they've been avidly having
yes, you're right.
They're fluid, the person, and in that perspective,
the person that is fluid, whatever it is about themselves and their sexuality that they've been suppressing in this relationship is now out, and they're able to be a little bit more free. It's just, you know, one obviously is better than the other, and so I think that the person that's straight in the relationship really has to some like internal reflecting to do. I mean, I think it, you know, they have to really be a really strong person to be able to, you know, work that out, you know, and make that part of their relationship and accept that person for who they are and move on and grow together, or, you know, end up needing therapy for quite a few years because something that was in their face, they didn't even know it was there all along, and you know, and they got blindsided by something. It creates a very big trust issue. Yeah. Moving forward, you know, and some people don't get over that. You know, they almost never trust again because they let something so close to their heart, and then that thing ended up hurting them, and they didn't even know it was there the whole time. You know. And I you know, like I almost like stopped looking into it because like it was sad. Yeah. To read those stories. Yeah, I get that. You know, that. There was no I read 3 of them.
It's probably sad on both parts, because there's the one person that's been in a relationship for a very long time that's like really not being true to themselves. Yeah. And then the other person's with this person, loving them and being with them, and then in the end realizing that that's not what it was cut out to be.
In the 3 stories that I read, it didn't end good for the person that was straight. It didn't end like they, you know, one, you know, became semi-suicidal. The other 2 needed therapy and had trust issues. And in the 3 stories, the person that, you know, had the sexual fluidity, you know, that person to some case was being celebrated for finally coming out. You know, and you know, and living who they really are, and you know, so like the dynamic of what happens between, you know, in the lives of those 2 people are from, you know, one extreme to the other. And I think it's interesting. But you know,
I don't know if you noticed that when you said that they were celebrated for coming out, I kind of rolled my eyes, and I wasn't rolling my eyes because of that. I actually rolled my eyes because on a future show we're gonna talk about drug addiction. And that reminded me of something that really grinds my gears.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a totally different topic, so I wasn't rolling my eyes at that. But I can understand how that thing could happen. You know what's interesting that you said it? You said that the straight person may need therapy. I think fucking everybody needs therapy. Whether you have had a bad relationship, a good relationship, a great child, like I think everybody needs therapy. I think people need to understand themselves better. Yeah. I just know that not everybody has access to therapy. And I wish everyone did. I wish it was just like part of, personally, I wish that healthcare was universal and that everybody could have it. And mental, you know, the focus on mental health was part of that.
You know what's interesting?
That's a whole nother conversation though.
But in a heterosexual relationship, right, where a man, I'm going to use the man for example, a man is with a woman and then ends up getting into a relationship with another woman. And so the original relationship that he has, if that relationship ends up ending and the man therefore then goes on to have the relationship with the new woman, the older relationship woman, at least to some degree, if she, you know, can later on maybe improve herself, you know, like there's just, you know, like there's something that she can almost compete with internally, where she can say to herself, you know, if she still maybe at some point in the future wants to be with him or win him back, there's something that she can almost feel like she can level up to above to have a chance to do that.
Because this person's with another woman.
Because the person's with another woman.
Because if they were same sex, there's no way that they can find anyway.
And so I think that is the really devastating part for a woman. To find out that the person that she lost her man to is another man, and she can't even compete with that. There's no competition. Yeah. It's just total defeat. You know, that's like, I mean, can you just imagine the sack of bricks that you know?
Yikes.
Yeah. And so that's that was the sad part about it, you know.
Yeah. And then if there's children involved,
oh, forget
that's
about
really
it.
like
That's,
a whole, because now you've come out that you are, you know, whatever your sexuality is, you now then have to explain to your children
yeah,
who you really are.
yeah. Well, the one article had children in it, and the woman's she tried to work it out for the sake of the children,
Which I think is important, and I commend people that really would put their children first and say, I'm doing this for the better of my children's future. That's not always easy because, feelings
yeah, well,
will take hold of you.
What ended up happening to her was that she ended up falling into deep depression.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, so the relationship, it eventually ended. But, she tried to work it out for the kids. It didn't work out.
Well, I told you that I knew a guy that I used to work with that was married for 30 years. And then his wife passed away. Mm-hmm. 6 months later, he came out as gay and had a partner. Now, you know that man was gay his whole life. But because he was from another generation where being gay was probably, it was looked at like blasphemy, like you were an abomination. So he went the route of what you're supposed to do when you're heterosexual. He got married and he had children, and he loved his wife, and he was with his wife till death do you part. Mm-hmm. And then, when he came out, this was 2011. So, the acceptance of someone that identifies as homosexual is different.
Yeah.
I just think that it would be amazing that as a society, if we can move away from labeling and just let people be free. But the reason why I don't think that will happen is what we're, going to get into now, is that there are things that are built into the fabric of our society that will prevent people from being truly who they want to be.
Before we move on to that,
yeah, no, I'm not saying that we're moving on, but I'm saying, but this is why this will continue to happen.
Yeah, I have an interesting question.
Sure.
Do you ever wonder why? Why do these things happen? Do you ever think about some of the many reasons why a man would, other than sexuality, mm-hmm. would choose to engage with sex mm-hmm. with another man, but not be gay? So we talked about at the beginning that, it could be either that they are gay or bi, kind of a sexual orientation thing. That's a reason why they would do so, or an exploration of sexuality. But outside of that, did you ever wonder what other things would drive a person to do that? I found some.
I personally think it would just be curiosity. So
I found some, and I thought that they were pretty interesting. And one would be that they would do it because they were sexually abused as children, and they were reenacting childhood abuse. It had nothing to do with sexuality, just a condition.
That makes me very angry.
Yeah. I mean,
I had to pause for a second.
Listen, it's nothing to smile about, but it is something that is real, and that should be spoken about to have a better understanding as to other things, other reasons that go on beyond that happen that are just beyond sexuality. Another one that I found is, we talked about, because they're curious, like they do kinky things, and those kinky things excite them. So, an exploration of who they are. Others do it just for money.
Oh, yeah, I could totally see that.
Just for money.
It's so funny that you say that, because in the comment section, there were people that said that literally.
It's called.
And someone said that it, and I don't know if this is true or not, but there were quite a few comments that said that happens a lot in Africa.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it happens.
I don't know firsthand, and I'm just, telling you what I read. Of course people are going to engage in sexual acts for money. I mean, that is...
There's a terminology. It's called pay for gay. Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
And then on the flip side of that, men will do it for financial domination. Men with power will do it just to feel dominant, to dominate, to do what they want to do, to have the power on just on a financial standpoint of it, which I think is very like
we let men run the world.
That's a power trip right there. That's a hard power trip. So yeah.
Listen, I feel like I have a lot to say about that. There's a lot. If someone is reenacting something that they were exposed to through abuse, that makes me sad on so many levels, because there's such a level of confusion that is built into that. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome, where, you become like in love or in admiration of your captor, so now you're acting out these things that someone did to you where they took advantage of you, you know what I mean? And then you're doing it with other people. That also makes me think about when you say power and through abuse, a lot of stories that came out about the Catholic Church, about men in power that were doing that kind of stuff.
Just taking a step back to the last comment that you said, when it came to, people will actually, reenact sexual acts like that out of hatred, to draw out a person of the same sex, to kind of like physically violate them once it's almost like a trap. I understand. That kind of makes me think about Jeffrey Dahmer. You ever read about him?
Didn't read about him, but I know his story. Yeah. And then the thing for power, men are definitely obviously cut from a different cloth. Let's just be real. Men and women are not the same. Yeah. And but not to say that women don't have sex for power or for money. Like, that definitely happens. But I feel like maybe women may do it to obtain power, and the way you're saying is that men will do it to show their power. Yeah. Do you understand? I feel like it's very different.
On a conquer type of type of basis. Yes.
Yeah. Where I think it's a little bit different. Women will use it to like gain power. Like, they'll use it as like a stepping stone.
Men will do it to feed their egos. That's literally what is fuel for the fire.
That's that's fucking crazy.
But I thought that these were just very interesting points, and all valid, that exist within this act, that seems so simple at face value, but there's so many levels of it.
Yeah, those are definitely levels that when you asked me the question, the first thing that came to my mind was curiosity. Am I thinking that, to me, those are some of the more deeper, darker reasons as to why. And something I will tell you in one of the articles that I read that I believe 100% to be true is that we are still on the forefront of understanding human sexuality and the psychological things behind it. Because if you look back in earlier studies, and I'm talking about, 1930s, 40s, 50s, where these people that were studying man and woman's sexuality, the things that they were determining as to why a man and a woman engage in sex was very just like fucking black and white,
I don't really think that they were trying to understand it at that point.
Well, it was also, a lot of this research was being done by cis white men, that they were just pushing their narrative as to why they think men and women will engage. And then the other thing that I found really interesting about a lot of these older studies is that they were only doing it in certain communities.
But also, weren't these these studies weren't done on a biological level? They weren't being done by like scientists, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying to you is that you have to understand that scientists at that point in time, you have to understand the world was very different. So that is the major factor, is that the environment, as it continues to change, so will mankind. We will continue to evolve. So, and because a lot of those parameters, think about it in the 50s, you know what I mean? When these parameters were starting to be really, you know, sewn into the fabric of our society of like how men and women should act. Then you have these scientists that are, you know, or these, you know, psychologists that are looking into these things, and they're like, oh yeah, a man wants to have sex with a woman because he wants to procreate, you know?
So you feel like there was a bias research?
Oh, 1000%. Because when I tell you, when I look through a lot of these studies, because I would say that they vary anywhere from 10 to 20 year spans. So like, you know, there's one in the 50s, then there's one in like the 80s, and then there's one like in the 90s, and then the 2000, and then like the more recent one is like 2012. That's like the most recent. But that's about to be 10 years ago. Can you think about all the things that in the last 10 years that have exploded when it comes to, you know, sexuality, gender? Don't you think that would be just cause for psychologists and scientists, biologists to look into why men and women do the things that they do when it comes to their sexuality? Because if you're going to reflect back on fucking 1950, even though some of those studies still hold true, there's a lot of things in those studies that are very factual because they're just like, they're very basic.
Yeah.
But like there were parts of the studies that talked about like how white men wouldn't want to engage with sex with black women because the nature of black women was very different than the nature of a white woman. Because we're talking, you know,
right.
This is before civil rights.
Yeah, sure.
So that is the type of science and the type of research that I'm saying that shit is so outdated and so specific to the environment of the world that people lived in at that time.
Right.
That's why I feel like we are still on like the brink of like really understanding the sexuality of humans. Because our minds are forever evolving. And because our minds are forever evolving, people are going to want to do things not always the same.
Yeah.
And we have access to information that a click of a button now, where we didn't have that 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago. It was so funny. One of the articles I read was in Britannica, which was so funny to me because I'm like, fuck, I can't believe I'm reading an article or a chapter on human sexuality in Britannica online. Or you remember what you and I had to do back in the day? We had to go to the library. We have to look up the letter in the huge fucking Britannica. And do you remember when those things were sold door to door? And if you had one of those in your house, like if you had a set of Britannica,
you were like a scholar.
Yeah, you were fucking G. You were like, oh my God, you have these things? These things are so expensive. Now on bulk trash days in our neighborhood, I see them on the fucking side of the street as garbage. Yeah,
well, I mean, it was a highly respected source of information, you know, so.
Can you put the time for me, please?
No, sorry.
It's okay. I feel like there's a lot of different aspects of this conversation that we could have. And there were some men that commented that said that they were straight and had engaged in gay sex. And I reached out to a couple of them and I was like, hey, I would love to talk more about this. And unfortunately, nobody reached out back to me because I could understand how uncomfortable that conversation may be, but it's very easy to put that information out there when you're doing it from behind a profile where nobody really knows who you are. But so many gay men said that they were having this exact situation happen. They were having sex with men that identified as straight, men that identified as straight, that were married, that had children. And so for anyone to think that this doesn't happen, I feel like it's super naive for you to think that.
Do you think that the forbidden aspect of it plays a large part in what draws a person into something like that? You
mean because it is like the forbidden fruit?
It's a social construct that is that act is forbidden, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel
it's
like
beyond social construct?
Yeah, it's beyond.
Yes.
Yes. But do you feel like that? Like a lot of things that people do that they're not supposed to do. Does this? Do you feel like that this could potentially fall within that category to some degree?
Yes, and I think that's key to some degree, because I feel like there's a huge driver for someone to want to do something like that. It's just not like, oh, I want to see if I could get away with it type shit. You know what I mean? Like, I think those kind of things are things that, like, maybe mommy and daddy are telling you, like, you know, don't write on the wall, you know, don't play with fire. Like, those type of things. Those are like really experimental, and you may have like a little bit of want to do it just to know, but when it comes to engaging in sex where you have to like place your body with someone else, I feel like there has to be even more.
But what I mean that is that, you know, at some point it becomes something that for someone, maybe they were told that they shouldn't look at it that way, and then they question it. Well, why can't I look at it that way?
Of course.
And now that you're telling me I can't look at it, it actually looks kind of interesting, you know, and I actually kind of like it.
Yeah.
Now that you made me really take a good look at it because you told me I couldn't look at it, now I'm really looking at it like, why? Why am I not supposed to be looking at this?
Yeah.
And then I think that creates a very particular interest in its own, rather than something that happens organically. You know, something that says, oh, well, here, look, listen, this is all for you. Just take a look at everything you want. And then, you know, with all the permission that you're looking, you're like, well, that looks really interesting. And then you're drawn to it. That's like something that you just chose to do on your own. But when you're restricted from something, I think the curiosity really like amplifies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I agree with that strongly. Like, I think that is, I think about that on so many different levels.
So that's like one of the ingredients that are sprinkled onto the whole thing.
Well, now that you talk about, you know, things being restricted, let's talk about the type of things that are built into our society that will stop someone from being who they truly are. What are the things that you think in our society that are in place that prevent a man or a woman from really stepping into their true light of their sexuality? Even though we live in a time where, you know, it's embraced more, you know, we have LGBTQ organizations that are really spreading, you know, valuable information so that people can better understand why someone may identify as gay or bisexual or, you know, trans or queer. So people, I think, have a better understanding, but there are still many facets of religion, culture, societal norms that will prevent a man or a woman from coming out as their true sexual orientation and thus exploring their sexuality.
Well, for me, the number one answer is family.
Okay.
More particularly the strict parents. Okay. More particularly the household that one grows up under.
Okay.
Because I feel like it all really starts there. I mean, it has to, right? That's what you're born into. That's where all your ideologies and things initially come from. Your environment growing up. So whatever is put into your, you know, whatever is put into your mind as what you should believe in and how you should live your life starts at home.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the number one reason why someone wouldn't come out if they felt like that they wanted to and refrained from it would be, the parents or the family, whoever raised them.
Yeah. I think you and I can speak firsthand. I feel like in the Hispanic community, the jokes that are played about, are you gay?
Yeah.
Is so prominent.
Yeah.
I remember being very young. I want to say I was under the age of 7. And my mom had a gay uncle. And I remember when he would come over, it would always be like, my uncle's coming over with his friend. And I used to just be like, I remember being so young and I knew he was gay and I just never understood why. But, you know, I was part of a generation where you kind of like didn't talk back and you didn't really you speak when spoken to type shit. So like I wasn't one to question why they were withholding that information from me. But I damn well knew that that man was gay. And to be honest, I loved him. I thought he had the best energy.
Yeah.
He'd come over and he was so loud and so fun and so free. And that was his lover, his partner. And why my family chose to like not tell me or like make it seem like he was just a straight man that always had a friend with him was the most dumbest thing.
Well, I mean, I think to some degree it was taboo, was forbidden, and so like they
but I'm gonna tell you why I think that's so fucking stupid, but go ahead.
No, I mean, no, I agree with you. I don't like that. There's,
you see my face.
You may want to let our listeners and viewers know why you feel like it's so stupid, but I know how you feel about it, but thinking back to that time when you grew up and the way Hispanic families were at that time, that was something that was not looked lightly upon.
The reason why I think it's stupid is because a lot of this shit comes from religion. There are a lot of Hispanics who, take part in the Catholic religion. And in the Bible, it says that to lay with another man is an abomination. And people will carry this into their everyday culture in a Hispanic family. And the reason why I think it's so fucking stupid is because they will use that to carry their prejudices against things that they find uncomfortable, but still will break so many other fucking rules that the Bible says are not like allowed, like having sex before you get married, getting a divorce, because like when you get married in Catholic church, a fucking divorce is like a mortal, like it's a sin. Birth control. There's things in the Bible that says that a man can sell his daughter into slavery. Are we still doing that today? So if you want to identify with everything in the Bible and you want to cast, judgment on people because of things that you were taught that you like to choose to pull out of your religion, no, that actually is because you yourself don't feel comfortable and you're using that as like a shield.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so fucking stupid, because the amount of drug use and alcoholism and sexual, deviancies that were happening in my family, but then you want to hide the fact that my uncle was gay? Man, go ahead.
Well, I just, it's interesting to think that if that was written in the Bible, right? That it is abomination to sleep with another man.
Leviticus.
Why was that written?
Well, because it was happening. Hello.
Precisely. It was probably.
Hello.
Back then was men gone wild. There was no girls gone wild. Because they wrote it about men in the Bible. Like, this shit is out of control. Like,
evil's gonna get us fucking canceled.
Y'all got to stop this shit right here.
Yeah.
Like, y'all dudes is crazy.
And that's why priests will,
Yeah, well, that's a big scandal in itself.
Hello, the movie Spotlight.
Yeah.
All about that.
All about that.
All the fucking sodomy and molestation that were happening at the hands of male priests from the Catholic Church with little boys, adolescent boys. Because people feel that they must hide their sexual desires because their religion tells them so. Even though many churches will say, well, we don't deem the person an abomination. It is the act. Well, if you're gay, you're going to want to engage in that act. So what the fuck are we even talking about here? And I'm not telling anyone that they don't have the right to have a faith. But if you're going to have a faith, you are still not perfect. So just understand that. And I understand that there are certain things in the Bible that you're going to hold very true to yourself. But just understand that, again, that was the environment then.
Yeah. Okay.
And the environment is very fucking different now. So if you don't move forward and say, okay, some of those things are like a little like, are we still doing slavery? I mean, or are we not? Like, what are we doing? We're obviously not doing that. So let's take some of those older ideologies and like think with a newer mind, like a new age. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's.
There's so many. There's so
I
many.
have such strong feelings about that.
Old systems that have been redesigned and brought to the current age, that is probably one that should be looked over and reevaluated just a little bit.
Right? Are we still using rotary phones? I mean, you could still call somebody on a rotary phone, but is that what we're still using?
Yeah.
Technology and humans, we have evolved from that point. So if people are still thinking that, I personally think that a lot of these things were written into the Bible to find ways to restrict people, to show power over them.
Yeah, I mean, very early ages of law. Don't you think?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, had to start somewhere. So if law has evolved over the centuries, why hasn't the Bible?
Well, Evo, I feel like
that's a loaded question, right?
I mean, I actually just recently watched a show on Netflix. It's called Midnight Mass. It's funny. And very interesting story that takes place in this show. It's about a guy who's a priest, and he goes on a pilgrimage to Mecca, and winds up getting caught in like a sandstorm. And he is actually very elderly when he takes this pilgrimage, because the community raised money for him to go.
Yeah.
So he goes, but he actually has like early onset dementia. So when he gets caught in this sandstorm, he gets like very disoriented, winds up getting lost, finds like a little cave or like a little opening where he walks into because he's just trying to escape. He's trying to escape the storm. Goes into the cave and travels pretty far into the cave for whatever the reason. But anyway, winds up coming across some sort of creature. And the creature attacks him. Winds up being a vampire. He then sees the vampire as an angel because it has wings. And he believes that this thing was sent to him by God, because he refers back to scriptures in the Bible that say that when, I forget the apostle, but I believe it was the apostle Paul, and don't quote me on this, comes across an angel, that this apostle was afraid of the appearance that had presented itself. Because when you see these like miracles, you can become afraid.
Yeah.
And I could tell you firsthand, I've experienced some sort of, spiritual thing where it is somewhat scary. So anyway, he perceives this thing to be an angel. He then takes it back to his community. He boxes it up, gets it to travel with him. It restores his youth. He then starts feeding the community small pieces of the blood through the body of Christ, the blood of Christ in the communion. It starts doing things to the community. It helps one girl walk. It helps older people who have ailments. It starts to rebuild the community. He then thinks it would be the best thing, based on certain scriptures of the Bible, to make the entire community what he is now, which is a vampire. Like, he doesn't think he's a vampire. He just thinks that this is an angel that has bestowed a miracle on him. He then does this, makes the entire community vampires. I know this story sounds funny, but when you watch it play out, you're like, he's doing it based on the fact that he believes that this is a miracle sent from God. He then makes the entire community vampires. And then as he watches mankind play out from this miracle, he then turns to he wind up being in love with a woman from that community. And he turns to her and he goes, I decided to do this for my own self-interest, and I wasn't truthful about that. I brought this thing back because I thought that it could restore life in you as it did for me, because I didn't want to see you die. And I used the Bible as my preface. And then when he watched these people murder each other, he was like, what the fuck have I done? I used this book to justify these things that I was doing. And I realized that this book doesn't hold true to who we are now.
Right. And
I remember at the end of the show, I was like, holy fuck. That's that's like a metaphor for like what's happening in the world now, you know, like we still use the Bible and we still try to apply it to these fucking archaic things.
Yeah.
You know, we still use this archaic thing to try to apply to these like more future things, and it's like trying to put a fucking square in a round hole. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, sorry, but yeah, I at first, because when I was watching the show, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? But then I was like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, no, it's a great comparison, you know, to that story and where the Bible and religion fits into our society now.
Yeah, it honestly kind of like, and you know, I love vampires.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, what is happening here, ladies and gentlemen? This is not the vampirism that I know. But I do think that there will be a season 2, so we'll see where it goes from there. And then in the end, like, I really felt bad for this priest, because here he was suppressing his true self, because this man was a devout priest, but wind up being in love with a woman, and she had a child, and he denied that his whole life because he felt like he needed to be what society and what the Bible said he needed to be. And then this man brings a creature back that kills the whole fucking, you know, like, just think about how that works.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could apply that to so many things. So religion for me is such a strong driver why a person will restrict who they really are. And in actuality, if we're going to look at the Bible as like a reference, don't we think that, doesn't God love everybody?
That's what they say. Right?
So if God loves everybody, is your sexual orientation going to make God not love you?
And isn't one always supposed to forgive?
Listen, this is why for me religion is so fucking ridiculous. It is very ridiculous. But I still have so much found respect for people who have faith. Because I feel like it takes a lot to put that in the forefront of your life, to say that God will do it for me.
Well, so here's the thing, right? When it comes to, I feel like we're kind of going off topic here for a second, but I just have to say this. When it comes to faith, you know, some people are internally lost. You know what I mean? Some people have gone through such situations in their life where they almost feel like they have no direction. And a person like that can find a lot of benefit in guidance from one way or another. It turns out that religion can inject a large amount of faith into someone who at that particular time doesn't have a lot. And it injects a type of energy in a much needed situation. So, can you see how those two things play to each other?
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about that too, because I've watched a lot of previous addicts find faith in religion, and then that just turns into another addiction. You know,
but listen, there is a side to speak to say that it is helpful to people in a lot of cases, and it does lead them to a life better than the one that they were living prior, because they found some type of new faith or new direction in life, something that's worth living for, something that makes sense to them and gives them a guidance. It is a thing, but to say that everyone is living, by the golden rule and by the golden rule of it, probably not. But are there people that have come out better than who they were a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a year ago, 5 years ago? Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot. And to those people, I say more power to you. Whatever it takes for you to live a better life. If that's what you got to do, then do it. As long as in the end you're a better person, to some degree. And I know that you feel very different about that than
I'm going to stay quiet.
But I just felt like that there is, something should be said about the good side of it, because there is to some degree some good.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that, but I think that's going to be part of the drug addiction conversation that we're going to have.
Okay. Well, we'll put a pin in that and we'll circle back around to it.
And that's just a preview to our next conversation. And Evo and I have chosen to speak about that because Evo is going to speak about it from the addict point, and I'm going to speak about it from the victim perspective. I think that this should be a very interesting conversation because we have some strong perspectives on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But if we are talking about why people will engage in these types of activities, sexual activities, because it doesn't always just mean like intercourse. Could mean masturbation to same-sex porn. It can be receiving or someone masturbating you of same sex. It's not always just like intercourse. So that's why I say activities. I know that these conversations are hard to have with youth. You know, you feel like it's very like I guess it's very taboo to have a conversation with a young person to say, you know, there are instances where man and man like each other, woman and woman like each other. But just let me tell you something. Just like how we kind of sugarcoat it when we're talking about things when it comes to hetero, like, for example, when you get the question, where do babies come from? And, you know, you say things to your kids like, mommy and daddy love each other. And, you know, daddy gave mommy a baby in her tummy. Like, you know how we say things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a simplified version of the truth.
So why can't we do the same thing when it comes to, you know, sexuality? I've had conversations already with our daughter who is only 7 about various sexuality and sexual orientation. We actually watched a cartoon short on Disney Channel or Disney Plus that spoke about a man. Don't you remember that show? That it was like I think about a 7-minute. And I'm sorry, but the name of that short right now doesn't come to me, but it was about a young man who was afraid to come out to his parents, and he was moving in with his lover or his partner.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember this, yes.
And I remember...
And well played, Disney, on this one.
Oh, my God, it was such a beautiful thing. And I remember watching it with our daughter, and then in the end, I turned to her and I go, baby, do you have any questions? She goes, yeah, what? And I'm over here thinking that she's just gonna have like all these questions about why were the 2 men together, like why were they kissing, like I thought that was gonna be the conversation. And she goes, why do they call it gay? And I was like, you know, baby, that's a good question.
But yeah, I was about to say, you're coming from her, that's a great question.
Yeah, and I said to her, I just think it's the I think it's the easier name for homosexual. You know, like when we say straight for heterosexual. I was like, I think that's just all that it is. And he was like, then she went on to say, well, his mom really loved him, so I don't understand why he was afraid. And when I tell you, that was so beautiful to hear from her, because it didn't care that she saw 2 men in the cartoon. She was more focused on like some of the things that she just didn't understand as far as like the words.
Yeah, the verbiage of it.
But it was still simplified in a way where she was able to take it in and walk away from it like, okay, yeah, men like each other sometimes, or men love each other, or women love each other, and it was nothing to. And I think if we can inject that in small doses to our children and to our youth, it will just become part of like the normal conversation. But when people act like, oh no, my first grader could not know that men kiss, like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, so here's the funny thing, right? I think that this is it's a long-term evolution of something that just kind of happens in cycles, right? So you think about back before the Bible was written, and a man shall not lay with another man. So prior to that, you know, obviously it was written because this was happening, and it was happening to a degree where it needed to be written in a way where it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, they're referring to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. So, you know, so imagine prior to that, like this, you have this whole society of this is just something that is normal, and it just goes on, and then you have some type of resistance against that to where they try to instill it in society where that's no longer supposed to happen, and build something different off. It's an evolution of that, right? And then now here we are, centuries later, where now it's breaking free of that oppression that was put onto that. And, it's just like a cycle of it happening. And so now
they say history repeats itself.
Right. So now what I'm saying here is like that we're in the process of something that's happening over the course of centuries. And if you think about where we will be in potentially 2 or 3 centuries, we might be at the stage again where things are being written where this is now having to be oppressed again, because it's grown to something that has gotten too free, and it's too much. And now something happens to have to cool it down again. It's almost like the market. The market goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Once it goes too high, all of a sudden it's got to come back down.
Yeah.
So I feel like
that's a really interesting perspective.
So we're just a small blip in a very big cycle.
The circle of life.
The circle of life. And that's just me understanding how the way the market works, that I was able to put those two together. Because it's interesting, the things that I've learned on how the market cycles over the course of time, has cycled over the course of time, and how it plays out over a long period of time. And if you don't take a step back and look at the bigger picture, you don't really understand the full scope of what actually is going on. And so now I sat here and I thought about it for a second, and I was like, so before the Bible, it was, everything was all good. Then around the time of the Bible, it was like, no, we got to stop this. This is out of control. And then now, here we are speaking, we should be talking about it to our children, and we should be instilling it in small amount. And you see how it's all of a sudden starting to sprout from the bottom. Yeah. Until it grows into like this wild flower or this crazy weed, then all of a sudden needs to be trimmed and hedged and brought down to put nice in a nice little package again.
Well, the way that I think about it is when you had Europeans coming to parts of, let's just say, America, and they saw Native Americans living a very different life than what they were living in Europe, or Spaniards, or British, whatever it was that came to the Americas, because there was a different array of people that came into this country and were exposed to Native Americans who lived very differently than they lived. When something is different, when it is the unknown, humans a lot of the time have the first reaction to reject it, because it's unidentifiable to them. Because they at one time were living in their own bubble. So everything that they did in that bubble made sense to them. So now when they're exposed to something polar opposite of that bubble, it's very easy to say that they're savages. That's an abomination, or that's abnormal, because they're not doing it the way that we do it. And I think that's a huge part of the problem, is that when a person identifies as heterosexual, homosexual, whatever it is, and they see someone doing something that is different from what they do, they cast out. And I think the best way that I can understand this about how it is that you because when you live in America, you feel like you kind of see it all. And it's not until you step outside of your bubble that you really are exposed to what the world and the country is really about. Because I have one memory that comes to mind, whereas I went to go to Texas, and they're an open carry state. And I remember walking into a restaurant and seeing many people with their pistols on their hip. And then there was a sign at the front of the restaurant that said something about what they expected people to do with their firearms. And the way that people spoke about things there, so different, but we're still in the same country. And it was just so different to me. But instead of me being like, oh, this is wrong, because we come from a state where open carry is not legal, if anything, I was so intrigued by it. I was just like, I wonder how people feel in these communities with men and women walking around with open carry weapons around children. Because, the conversation is always for the children. And it didn't seem like there was anything, like nobody had a problem with it. But it's just because when there's people from a different place. So that's what I thought about. I was intrigued by it, because I think that there will be some people that are intrigued by it, but they're on the lower end.
So
And
you're so what I'm getting from this, right? And I may be wrong, but I think that what I'm getting from this is that you're saying that in the same way that these states expose their children to guns and they grow up as guns being a normal part of their life in society, right? Why can't some of these other things that are considered taboo, which are illegal in some other places, be instilled in kids at a young age and be made comfortable? Because once it's the norm, it's the norm.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that it should happen in schools, because I don't want anybody coming from me. No. I'm talking about in society.
Well, at home.
That's what I mean.
At home. That's where the buck starts. It starts at home.
Because I personally feel like you and I had this conversation a little bit. You know, people right now are really at odds when it comes to racial theory in school and sexuality and all this other shit. And I do somewhat agree that I think school should be for education as far as like reading, writing, and arithmetic. You know what I mean? The other things, I would hope that the community would take part in it. That the people in the community would talk about sexuality and embracing other things that are not, you know, what is the norm to them, you know, because I know that we do it in our house, and it has really allowed our children to really have like no prejudice against people of a difference. I remember the first time that my oldest son met what you would consider a more flamboyant gay man in the company that I worked for. And he came right up to my son, Anthony, and was just like, "Hey, how are you? Oh my God, he's so cute, blah, blah, blah." And he was quite young at the time. This is, more than 10 years ago. So he was 12, maybe. And I remember when we left, I was just like, "Hey, baby, you know, like, he's my friend, and you know, he's gay, and you know, how did you feel about that?" And he was like, "He was really nice, Mom. Like, I knew he was gay. Like, it was," and it's because I've never been like, "Oh, that's not okay." I just want to know, because I knew that was his like first direct experience with an older male gay man. I just want to know how that felt for him. And he was just like, he was cool. He was really nice. You know, like, it wasn't like, because I never wanted our kids to be the ones that made those fucking jokes like, "Oh, are you gay? I can't stand that." Or like, you know, when there's things said that like, "Oh, he screams like a girl," or like, I hate those kind of things, because that makes one thing look, that's a person trying to make who they are better than what that is.
So, you know, you mentioned that these things should be instilled in children at some point in age, and it shouldn't be done in school. You know what I feel like should be done in school? Is anger or hatred management.
Oh, well, if I'm not mistaken, that became a part of our middle son's curriculum in high school. They started to teach emotional intelligence. Okay.
So emotional intelligence, that doesn't really speak to me when it comes to addressing negative emotions and anger.
No,
it may be part of the curriculum, but when you say it to me like that, I just think about you know, I guess being intellectually in tune with your, you know, with who you are and your feelings, right?
It's also teaching empathy and sympathy, and.
But what I'm more concerned about is, so these things that affect our society in a negative way, like prejudice and hatred and things like that. You know, you think about children, and children, they're not born angry. They don't come out of the womb.
Well, actually, no, I'm just joking.
They don't come out of the womb like just, you know, and with this anger and hatred. I mean, kids are generally innocent, happy babies, and only cry when they're hungry and they want something, or they don't feel good. Outside of that, they laugh, they joke, they play. Everything is beautiful, and it isn't until something is implanted into their brain that this other side is created. And because, you know, that typically happens at home, the only place to really combat that would be at school.
Ooh.
Dun, 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 dun. I thought that would really like play a great dynamic in you know, in the growth of a child, because there isn't that outlet, there isn't that real guidance for children to be dealing with the things that they're instilled at home that they necessarily shouldn't be instilled with. You know, there isn't something teaching them how to manage those or process those feelings.
And then what winds up happening is because they're not giving those tools when they go out into the world and they're exposed to these differences, they act one of two ways. Either they're empathetic towards it, or they show hatred.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because there was an aspect of that in the show too that I was just talking about. But I'm gonna say that I recommend that show. Maybe if you like vampires and you're not offended to see it play out in a biblical standpoint, I thought it was really interesting.
What's the name of it?
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass. Oh, you did. You said that. I'm sorry.
Midnight Mass on Netflix. But that actually brings us to the end of our show today.
Yes, it does.
It fucking flew.
Yeah.
I feel like I sometimes get so like, I get like a little bit of anxiety right before the show. And I know it's a good thing because I'm so excited to talk about the things that we choose to talk about, because they build off of things that people are saying to us. And I want to like do a deep dive into these conversations. Yeah. So I get like a little anxious because I'm like, ooh, we're about to embark on something that, is built off of, the comments of other people. Yeah,
it's definitely, it's interesting how the show has taken a different spin as to what before when we were doing it live. Yeah. We were engaging with our viewers, and a lot of our comments were based on the what our viewers would say. Yeah. And now it's still the same, but different. Yeah, because we're definitely getting a larger variety. Correct. Of feedback.
We had 1,000 comments.
Yeah.
Or 1,000 plus on the last video.
Definitely a lot more to like filter, cipher through. It's great.
And I gotta love all the men. A shout out to all the men that like to talk shit to me on social media.
Blaka.
Keep it coming, because you are fucking boosting my engagement. Thank you very much. Joke's on you, buddy. But yeah, so that until next Friday, which if I'm not mistaken, hang on a second, am I crazy in thinking that, because today is, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to see Spider-Man later today, and I cannot fucking wait.
So next Friday is the 24th.
Yeah, so next Friday is actually Christmas Eve. We will have a show for you because we will record it the day prior. So happy holidays to everybody if we don't get a chance to say it to you.
Yes, happy holidays.
Yeah, but maybe we'll say it for the next show. But anyway, I'm excited because I think next show will be kind of fucking heavy. But anyway,
we shall see.
We shall see. So thank you for everybody that chose to join us today. We greatly appreciate you. So until next Friday, peace out.
Peace out.